So yeah, just after last week's meeting, we just kind of discussed. Someone on Discord brought up a problem with cherry picking to release branches after this change. Turns out I tested this locally. Git cherry picking works without problems. So even once we do the migration to these auto-called packages, to these simple package paths, cherry picking to release branches shouldn't be a problem. However, I also tested a PR of like what happens when you have a PR that uses an old base branch or an old base commit, and then the migration happens. And so that actually does fail. So I just made a PR here, and we can see the branch has conflicts, and that's because in this PR I'm changing a file at this path, but on the actual base branch, the file has been moved and migrated. And so this will cause a lot of PRs to be needing a rebase. But it's not that bad because just a git rebase on the base branch without having to resolve any conflicts manually works. Well, I guess unless you had other conflicts in there. So I just made a small suggestion here, which points this out. I don't have any updates about the tooling. I didn't get to work on that. But does anybody else have any updates or anything they want to mention regarding the RFC or this effort?
Just one thing that there does seem to be interest in this. This kind of came up in discussion over in the Discord. So it seems to be of interest. People seem excited about it.
Awesome. I'm not too much in the Discord community. I'm not sure how big that community actually is, but it's not insignificant, I think. All right. So other than that, I don't really have anything regarding this. I did think that maybe we could discuss a bit of the process of this team about right now we are in kind of a state where we're just waiting around and we don't have anything parallel going on. And we might want to improve on that in the future with maybe different teams working on different things and how we want to structure that. Also, that could be extended to all the teams as well. I'm part of the docs team as well. And there we also would like something like that with kind of having a core team that can make the decisions and then having kind of work teams that do the work.
Yeah, I once talked to some person that was a little bit like, I like the work, but like, what is this team? What does it mean for Nixpkgs as a whole? So I think maybe, trying to just sort those things out where, it's not a coup, but at the same time, if other people would like to be, structure themselves and have meetings, it'd be, great to mutually facilitate that. I was talking to AM Joseph and Floki about some standard and Linux things, and looks like there's sort of finally enthusiasm for getting through some things I want to see happen for a while, and that meetings on that, that it could benefit from the same processes as this.
I think it's. I'm not sure how to best. An idea I had. I'm not sure if I talked about this before. Like how to facilitate these teams working together and how to kind of find people to work together on issues. And one idea is to just have a repository with issues, and in these issues, people kind of say, well, we describe an issue. This is something that would be interesting to work on. And then people can say, I want to work on this. And as soon as we have like 2 or 3 people, we kind of start that project. And then we can set up regular meetings. And kind of, we could even delegate like a project lead among those people who will then kind of report the progress every week and see and kind of delegate tasks a bit further. That might work.
How
but it
does
will
that
be a new thing.
relate to the RFC process? Sounds kind
Yeah.
of like half of that. A little bit like a certain amount of overlap, definitely, right?
Yeah, it's related. Oh, I'm actually not sharing my screen anymore. But yeah, it's definitely related and might even kind of replace the RFC process. Honestly, RFCs have this problem that it's just random people that decide on things, which then doesn't have a lot of weight, this decision, because it's just random people kind of decided by the steering committee.
Well, at the same time, it's a good, cushion against the sort of complaint that it's the same people that somehow keep on making all the decisions. Like the thing you
Yeah.
brought up of the involve the code owners, but as only one of the shepherds, I think sort of, strikes at the balance between representative democracy and sortition. There'll be like some qualified people are like officially, they've gained some position of authority, and then some sort of random, sort of more jury that's just assigned and has less stake in the matter, but has sort of the the caution of being thrust in the hot seat.
Yeah. I think to some degree I agree, but also it's hard to kind of work towards a vision, like a what is it, kind of a standardized vision. No, not standardized, like a consistent vision. If you just have random people that assemble for every issue separately. But it might work if we just have like half the people in there, kind of from forming a shared vision, and then other people that are just happen to also be there. But then it's still kind of hard, because what if those people kind of veto certain decisions, and I'm really not
Which
sure
people?
Like the extra.
That's
random
thing. The extra people are almost always super biased towards the thing.
Towards the thing.
The extra people tend to be motivated because they want to see it happen.
Well, I've also seen. Well, that's personal, but I've participated in RFCs just because I don't want to see some RFCs.
Was that one of the various code of conduct or community team or other one of those ones? Or I mean, it's good that you've done that.
I don't think it was one of those.
Okay.
I just think, I mean, certain RFCs just I mean, it's good.
Those were the ones that had the longest threads besides Flakes.
I guess it's just RFCs where I don't want to get the wrong solution and I know about the thing. Not necessarily that I think the RFC is a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's just
okay.
I know about it and can help with finding the right solution.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe those are the people that should make the decisions.
Well, it's good to have a balance, people that join because they like it, people that join that they don't like it, people that join because someone else demanded they do it.
Yeah.
Like me, trying to recruit shepherds sometimes.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure if we should, like, what would be an easy step to try something new with parallelizing work. I mean, we could. So currently, this team works via or like through RFCs. We work together to create the RFC draft, and then the RFC process starts. But honestly, over time, I feel like that's just a lot of
Well,
extra
we
overhead.
picked a project that was involving the RFC. There's other things that just aren't that impactful, like the package config stuff that a few of us have been working on.
Yeah, although
Robert's
I'd argue
night that should have gone through an RFC.
I think it's those things don't need an RFC, but I think this team specifically is there to only make decisions over things that would need RFCs because they are so impactful, these changes. And for other things, also, you can just have a single person do it.
Well, then that's sort of that weird Goldilocks thing of it's like it's too big for you're worried about being blocked in the RFC process, but it's also too big for it to not require an RFC. One answer is just that there is no Nixpkgs team, and there's just working groups convened for RFCs, and there's some recurring membership thing. I think it's good that we have this team momentum that can carry across projects, but if there is concurrency, then it will be different mini cases anyways.
I wonder. I mean, anything we want to do without the RFC process kind of needs an RFC of itself. Like, RFC to have the teams be independent of the RFC process or something like that. And I mean, that's kind of what the Nix team already has, right? I mean, the Nix team can make. Previously, it was just Elko, but now it's the Nix team that can make larger decisions. That without RFCs, I think.
Also, unfortunately, my my apartment super is here, and I think I need to go watch something for a bit. But maybe I'll be able to pop back in here. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
We have this thing in the Rust project called an MCP, which is a major change proposal. And it's sort of like a semi-RFC. We have RFCs too, but there are things that are in the twilight zone, where they're too big to just make an MR and ship it, but they're too small to require an entire RFC. And these are usually things that are of somewhat big concern to other people working on the code because they're like major restructurings, but of lesser concern to end users because it's not really user visible. Those kind of things. So it's not always that. It can also be a user visible change. That's just not major.
So it's like a middle ground. I mean, I guess
we still have to define what it means to be that, right? How much of the bureaucracy do we now need? How much sign off by whom does this then require?
I will actually. I'm trying to take some notes, but I'm really bad at it right now. I'm sure. Alex, you seem fairly vacant right now. Do you want to help out, write some stuff down?
I actually could be here a little longer, but it's good not to rely on that. Super went out to the hardware store.
So Vanya told us about Rust's MCPs, major change proposals, as middle ground between RFCs and PRs.
New thing.
This is so crazy. Oh, okay.
I'm just looking up what exactly it means to accept one of these.
I mean, I wonder what is really the. I guess, or maybe we could have. the people that make the decision over something are the people that will be impacted by that decision. So if an RFC impacts end users and like developers, then we should have a team of developers and end users make the decision over it. But if it's only an internal refactoring that doesn't really affect end users, then yeah, we don't need to involve end users in the decision. I feel like that might work pretty well. So someone has to, yeah.
I googled MCP and I saw a reference to the RFC bot. If we could have one of those, I think that'd be very useful. Because
an RFC bot,
right, when the process is completely manual, I think it's hard to do it at a smaller scale. And at the same time, people get worried that if there's a bunch of middle ground issues, people might forget some steps. But if you have this RFC bot as the sort of parliament supervisor person, like enforcing the process, then I think it's easier to be confident in having more things going simultaneously at a smaller scale, because you have the little robot there that's impartial, one hopes, keeping the rules, ensuring enough people sign off on the issue, etc., etc.
Yeah, they also do the final comment period, which is 1 week. I think that's the 1 week before the RFC bot merges it. And during that week, every stakeholder can still register concerns and then either just prolong the FCP or just close it outright and say, no, this is a non-starter. I'm vetoing it. At least in the case of RFCs, you can definitely veto it if you're a stakeholder. MCPs, I'm not sure. I'm not too familiar. But yeah, I think the bot is a good idea. In general, I've made the experience that botting various things on repos can really change just how you approach things. Another thing they do is you can have subtree ownership in a repo. Right? That's not something, as far as I know, that GitHub knows about. You cannot say, hey, these few maintainers, they don't have the commit bit, but they can merge anything that just touches this tree. And you can't really do this in GitHub. But if you have a bot that just merges stuff, you can implement arbitrary policies. And they have done this. So if you just touch the standard library and you are a standard library maintainer, you can merge this, even though it's in the same repo as the entire compiler, right?
Yeah.
So it would.
I mean, this is out of scope right now, but this might solve some other scaling issues.
It's architectural.
Present. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
And I know Alex says something similar, but right now, Nixpkgs sort of has this reputation as this grand anarchist experiment that works quite well. And we were able to get by with very little formal decision makings because a bunch of technical reasons meant we could do things decentralized where other distros couldn't. Now we're hitting the limits of that, but I sort of think it's in our DNA to always try to push that boundary. And so if, like our big innovation was we're going to have the monorepo and all the things versus the traditional distros with their like gazillion different repos, and it's impossible to figure out what goes where in these really rigid fiefdoms. If we add more robots and other toolings, we'll just stay at the vanguard of the world's greatest the decentralized collective project, an open source, and then save. The more we can deal with that way, the more that teams and means like this can be like the the fallback if there's something that didn't get solved, and ideally there's fewer and fewer things that. Well, sorry. Ideally, there's maybe the same number of things that have to be escalated to like manual convene a team of humans, because we get more ambitious, but we also get better at doing things a decentralized way. So the like froth at the top of a container that has to be dealt with in this more synchronized fashion doesn't increase in depth.
But does this work for the goals of this team of like improving the Nixpkgs architecture?
I
Because
mean, if
that's
you
like larger issues.
it is, but I would say that the architecture of the code and the architecture of the contribution process are intimately related. Like
In some
trying to
cases, literally, right? You have maintainer in the code, even though it doesn't do much currently with respect to GitHub. I think it just assigns a reviewer, but it doesn't mean that the maintainer gets to merge. You still need to wait for somebody with the magical bit, and that confuses some people sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me, even with our
I mean,
units
that-
one, it's about core organization, but it's also about the process of contributing packages and understanding the boundaries between packages with the like don't fish out files from other directories rules. It's very much social and technical engineering to me, and that's a good thing.
That is true. If random things fish out stuff from random places, that makes it harder to reason about. Oh, this MR just or this PR just changes this subdirectory. Obviously, it's not going to break Chromium, right? But still, you can always break Chromium in many ways. just by breaking a package that is transitively dependent upon, not
Right.
via path, just normal, call package stuff by Chromium.
But so like, I mean, I think that's a good idea to like have a bot that can make a bit RFC non-worthy changes more structured and automatic. And also that maintainers can merge their own PRs. And that, I mean, that could be a project in of itself to make that work. And we could work on that, just making it easier for contributors to contribute to Nixpkgs is kind of also part of Nixpkgs architecture. Well, kind of. It's the infrastructure architecture, I guess, something like that.
Maybe there's another team or sub-team in the making. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, like speaking from experience, the number one great thing that people say about Nixpkgs is, whoa, it's just a GitHub repo. I can make a PR. Imagine if you're trying to update a package in Debian. Kind of. I mean, I've been there. I'm a long-time Debian user. I know what it takes, but it doesn't compare at all to just making a GitHub PR. That's the one big benefit, and the one big downside everybody has about Nixpkgs is it takes so long to get my stuff merged, and I have to write in some discourse thread and beg for somebody with a merge bit, right? Not to hate on those people at all. I think the brave maintainers are doing a great job, but it's like reaching the scaling limit of this approach, I feel.
Yeah, and by the way, Alex, if you can take notes, you can also pass it off to someone else.
I'm on it. I was reading about the code owner files to see if you could do branch protection rules based on that.
Yes, it's hard taking notes. You can't actually think about anything that's saying. You just have to turn your brain off and type.
And honestly, that's also something I've been thinking about. Because the Nixos Foundation is thinking about sponsoring the teams a bit, and if we just had someone to always take notes, that would already be helpful, and that wouldn't require someone with like deep knowledge all the time. Yeah, but like going back to like how we can kind of parallelize the work of this team, which is kind of larger changes. I mean, maybe let's just keep the RFC process there for now. Like let's not change that. Let's still make that be a thing, but let's try to assemble individual teams with like what do you think of this idea of I mean, we can do this. Let me open Screen share here again. Oh, and screen sharing, I need to turn it off twice for it to work. All right. I mean, we have this this repository with issues in here. And yeah, so what do you think of the idea of just like saying, like at the top here, if you're interested in this, nominate yourself as a part of the working group. And then if we have enough people, we set up meetings and delegate a working group lead and give them a repository to work on together. And yeah, what do you think of this?
That sounds good. A little bit of a tangent is I'm not sure we should have our own separate issue tracker. I mean, it's not been a problem so far, but
where would it be instead?
Just like labels, architecture label, and Nixpkgs.
I'd rather not. So it's just gonna get like really messy, I think, because we have a lot of people that will see the issue, will comment at it, and say, I don't know, this needs an RFC, or that they have to be labeled really properly to not get.
Well, that was the thing. Right now,
sea.
Some people thought we made our own issue tracker to, if I'm not editorializing here, run away from the name one and try to avoid scrutiny.
That is kind of it, yeah. the main Nixpkgs issue tracker is just so full of things we are not interested in. And it would be like there are a lot of issues here that are like kind of Nixpkgs architecture decisions, but how can we find these in the, what is it, like 30,000 issues that exist already?
Is it possible?
It's just a label, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
If ideally it'd be like a label that only certain people can put on an issue. I don't think that perm exists, but
I know I can't add any labels, so
yeah,
you
something
need to be
exists.
a what is it, a contributor or something like that. I mean, we can. I mean, so currently we have also this entire separate Nix GitHub organization, which I just created because I couldn't be bothered asking or figuring out who has permission to create new teams, and I would just wanted to write it down somewhere. It didn't really matter where it is, and it seemed to have worked out not too bad. Like, I think it works. And unless we do have any major issues with this, I think there's no big reason to change it. Yeah. But yeah, so just asking again, what do you think of this idea of assembling teams? I mean, where the issue tracker is in the end, I don't think that really matters, as long as we can as long as we have a place to assemble teams. And
so there's the so a purpose-driven team to say, hey, go, like, here is a project or here is a problem to solve. Maybe a better way, I usually call these working groups. Like, you create a working group to go solve a particular problem, right? And then there's the larger general teams from which those usually will spawn out of, right? And then the
larger,
RFCs,
more general teams.
Yeah, so for example, like right now, like we're talking from the perspective of Nixpkgs architecture, right? But you could imagine us just spawning off working groups to be like, hey, go solve the package func problem, go solve this other problem, and that starts to like provide a little bit of scaling for the like generalized teams.
So you mean that once we have a working group for an issue, that we're going to say, well, this other issue is also part of it, and from this one working group, you can kind of spawn off a sub-working group to solve this separate issue that's part of the main one.
Yeah, I mean, but right now, like, what do we do, right? So, like, Valentin was very kind of insistent on, hey, as a team, we should get started with one particular problem, right? And so we settled on the package funk issue, and that's good, right? That gives us some momentum. It gives us some focus. But if we start saying we want to spawn multiple projects at once, we're going to have a way to scale that appropriately. No, the question then is like, when do we want to do that? Do we want to just continue with, we take one problem at a time and focus on it, or do we want to, or have we reached the point where we've decided that we can manage multiple projects at once and spawn off multiple working teams at once? Do we have enough people for that?
We have barely enough. Well, so we have this. The main problem I see is that we have this team now of people that kind of know about it, about the decisions and so involved, and we can make the decision, but we don't have a lot of working hours we can put into them. So I know all of us have some other things they need to work on, and me too. I sometimes had some time to work on the tooling and some days here and there, but that's barely enough to solve a single issue.
Yeah.
And so I don't see us kind of splitting off this team, which is why I want to involve more people that don't necessarily can make decisions, but that can work on things. And the community has a lot of people that might be interested in working on things, but they don't know what to work on and how to coordinate their efforts.
So then it might just be better for the short term to stick with kind of what Valentin suggested, which is, pick a problem and then go solve it and then try to kind of get help with it, but pick one problem at a time and just do it, and then pick the next problem.
So, I mean, just as we've been doing right now, or do you mean, because that might work, just let's have a working group meeting for a single issue and focus on that. And that can be assembled of perhaps I participate because I have time to work on this. If any of you have time to work on this, you can also participate, but we'll also reach out to just the community. Did you mean something like that, Tom?
Yes. I guess my next question is going to be, like, when do we want to start? Like right now, we're kind of, we'll say, it feels like we're kind of on the tail end of the existing project. When do we want to start looking at and considering what is next?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, well, right now we're just we have time to make decisions right now and sit together every week. And I think we should not waste that time.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of issues that need thinking about. But you're right. As soon as we start a new issue now, we have kind of two separate things to work on, which is then not 100% focused. But I think that might be all right as an overlap from one issue to the other.
Well, so I was in the staging channel or whatever discussion room, and for thought process, they brought up the problem of like security patches and patching and how this is related to graphs. And so the question is there some project having to do with making graphs a little bit easier to do or to use, and whether or not we could improve them? So just kind of over the next week or two, if we can get a little bit of just thought of, is that a potential project related to graphs?
What do you mean graphs?
This is to make it easier to replace a dependency that's really deep somewhere in the tree. Okay. And then you kind of graft it in, and then that makes things like
graft.
Graft.
Okay, got it. Yeah. I thought you were talking about like generating graph V's images or something. If Nixpkgs was like, I got a pile of scripts that do that.
Yeah. GUIX has like a stronger kind of ecosystem, I guess, for that and like a little bit better tooling for it. And the question is, well, do we want better tooling, and whether or not we should make Nix packages support that better?
I think I remember when I read it, it sounded a lot like an overlay to me, but I agree that overlays are wonky and strange.
Well, this is wonky and strange too.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that.
What I thought when I read it was like.
I'm not sure if that should be the focus. If that's a thing we should focus on, I think that would be like a new feature to Nix packages, whereas we have enough kind of bugs that we can fix in Nix packages.
Okay.
And
I just mentioned it because I told them I would.
Yeah, I see.
I don't have a strong thought one way or another. I just thought it would be.
Yeah. It's one more override kind of mechanism. I already cannot keep the existing ones in my head as a small brain Nix user.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
Tom, we should send me a message. Well, we could do a sidebar, but Tom, you should send me a message. I think I might have written a routine that does this a bit yesterday for it was porting the overrides from Node, their package.json, and I believe that's a graph if I'm not mistaken, in that it's deeply nested override layers that are conditional about like the nesting limit.
Yeah,
but we could sidebar.
Cool. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
I guess the other question then is, is there anything we have on the agenda just for the purpose of our existing project?
The simple package paths?
Yeah.
That might be one of the next best things to focus on. We have this future work section in here, which needs to be extended a bit, I believe, still. But yeah, that involves like these kinds of things. We have, package sets, for example, and just in general dependency or how to specify dependencies for packages. We have multiple versions of packages. These kinds of things. Honestly, the multiple versions of packages thing sounds like a not too hard thing. Still hard, but that might be a good focus.
Does this refer just to different versions or also to different builds? For example, you can have with Qt, without Qt.
Yeah, I'd say different versions and builds and variants and so on.
If I could make a recommendation, I really think nesting those into having them clustered in an adder set that's like together, where you have like a default top and maybe like, I don't know if you want to put it in pass-through or something like that, where it's, other versions, or alternate builds or something like that. But that I think helps just in terms of organizing them, like as you're navigating. If you're just navigating the attribute set, like I think like the downside you get there is like, now I can't like use the regular, if I use call package, I like lose the name, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it's easier to avoid shooting your foot off.
I agree. But let's not discuss solutions right now. Let's just, can we reach consensus on just deciding that this is the next thing we should work on? Like, is this? It would make sense as a next step after this RFC, and it's just a big problem in Nix packages. So I think that would be a good next thing to work on. Alex, do you agree?
Yeah.
All right. John, Tom, Robert.
I'd say it's a good thing to look into. I don't want to just say, yep, that's what we're doing at this point.
I feel like it's probably a solution that's going to be irrelevant when we get around to the other issues.
I guess
the ones about more modular packages or collapsing override and override adders into a single thing.
Yeah, but I wonder.
Yeah.
So, which can we do one of those bigger, even bigger things? Because this is still a kind of fairly small thing, in my opinion.
I suspect this will be fairly big, actually.
Yeah, but still a lot smaller than just like using modules for all the packages, I feel like.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's even bigger.
But yeah, Robert, you're right. I think modules, some form of modules, are the future, and I wonder if doing this now makes sense if we have that in mind for the future. And so yeah, alternatively, do we have an issue for modules in here? Package structure.
The IDs haven't been all split out into like proper
Oh,
issues with a
yeah.
single focal point.
What are these modules? Are they like Nixpkgs modules?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
well, yeah, that's a
And
good way
kind
to
of like
summarize them. But they're
DRV
not like
parts is kind of
Yeah, so
main thing.
DRV parts is an experiment in that direction. It uses the actual Nixpkgs module system, which is maybe not what we could do, or maybe it is. And it builds on top of the current make derivation or other make derivation like functions, which introduces a lot of complexity. So I wouldn't read too much into actual DRV parts implementation. It should probably be a cleaner re-implementation rather than yet another layer that introduces a bunch of overhead.
Robert, I want to send you the
stuff.
I implemented just like the base interface for override adders and stuff like that using just the regular I mean, I basically gutted using like a module declaration that I think you might be interested in. It was a fun experiment.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I think this is also something. Well, I think I can agree with focusing on trying this out. Like it wouldn't have to be like converting all of Nix packages to this, but introducing the mechanism maybe experimentally in Nix packages. Well, not sure about experimental, but probably still experimental, yeah. But that way, it's not going to be a huge change, and we can kind of try it out.
Yeah, we need to get a feel for the dynamics of this change, and then we can assess the other, possibly smaller changes, assess those in a context of having modular effect.
Yeah. Do we have anything?
It's down lower.
Robert, you have a like a minimal module system, right? That does.
Yeah, it's really a proof of concept, but I can.
Yeah, a link to that would be helpful. You've got a
Yeah, I probably linked it in one of the issues, but I'll add it to the one that was on screen.
Okay, so Robert, Alex, and me agree that this would be something good to, well, at least look into and maybe become the next major thing to work on. Tom, what do you think? Sound good?
I'm still hesitant on if it's feasible or a good idea. Yeah, so I'm still hesitant on this one.
Okay, so what about just looking into it? It's
I think it's worth looking into. I just I can't say that it is worth pursuing yet.
Yeah, I don't think we're making any like commitments to one thing or another. I think
I mean, it's a problem to be solved, but my suspicion is that we'll discover that we'll just run into too many issues, and then the scope will expand too quickly.
I don't disagree with that. I think it's worth playing with. Honestly, like I avoided using them for like 8 months because I thought it was bloat. and then they work very well. Like for yeah, I don't know. Worth checking out. I had doubts, but
Yeah, John, what about you? What do you think of looking into it / focusing on it? Oh, I wonder if he's here still, actually.
I think he had to leave.
Well, he's still in the call, at least.
He was saying something about a landlord or something, property manager. John, you're on mute, in case you didn't know. Well, it's a mystery. Who knows? Oh yeah, he said at 10:01. Sorry, have to go again.
Oh, Robert, I think I found your thing. You have a gist here.
Okay.
And I was muted.
Yeah, it's a good. Yeah.
So just priorities should be RFC 140. Finishing that, of course, first priority, and then the module. Well, if Ericsson also agrees. Modules for packet declarations. And so for this, should we try something new with kind of a working group? Like let's try this out. Let's make maybe a discourse post. Just kind of say we want to work on this thing. If you're interested in helping out implementing that, feel free to nominate yourself as part of the working group. Any opinions? Sound good? Sound bad?
What was the question? Sorry, I'm trying to add notes.
Yeah.
There's too much going on.
Well, let's just try to find a working group on discourse for the next issue to work on together. And then, well, I think set up weekly meetings, have everybody say that the time they have available. Then, well, weekly meetings. Yeah, sure. And then have, how about this? Have one person of the NAT be part of the working group. Yes. So I think that would be an interesting experiment. I haven't heard anybody disagree with this, so I might draft a discourse post for this if I have time. Well, actually, I should work on the RFC 140, so that's first priority. Yeah. Well, I guess that considering that, does anybody else have time to draft this? Like that would be an action item here.
Yeah, I think I can do it. I think I know the context quite well.
All right,
yes.
Sounds great. So draft discourse post for working group assembly. Sure. All right. I mean, we are kind of low on action items. Does anyone have something they want to work on or have time? Otherwise, we'll just leave this empty.
What would be helpful for you?
Well, you asked the same thing last time.
Yeah.
It would be just kind of assisting with the tooling, really. And that is Rust.
Sure.
Right, last time I feel like just kind of pairing. Well, how about? So, Tom, are you interested in just pairing up? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
could
I
also
do
do
some
today.
I could do some pairing today.
All right. So I can just kind of go over what I had planned for the tooling, and just kind of see what needs to be done still. And I can also explain just how the tooling works a bit and the different files in it and so on.
I could be a rubber duck.
All right. Or I mean, if you then have time, you could also work a bit on it, or we could work on it together.
Okay.
I will once again offer my Rust expertise if it helps. Don't know
Oh,
too much about the Nixpkgs, right?
Do you want to join too?
If you don't mind, I would like to.
All right. That sounds great.
Just let me know when.
Yep. Should we schedule this right now?
Yep.
Like I mean, after this, I have nothing else today.
Me neither. I mean, I need to get some water or something, but that's it.
Yeah. Tom?
Do it now is the best way to get things done.
Yes. All right, that sounds great. And Alex, you were also interested in doing something at some point. Do you also want to join?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna probably do like a break for a minute, but then I'll hop in.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll also take a quick break, but I'd say let's meet in like 15 minutes or so, or let's say I do want to eat something small. Let's say 17:45. 17.
Okay.
Well,
Got it.
CT. That's
It's in 20 minutes.
yeah. I like to do this. An easy way to express a specific date so that everyone can just easily run it and get it in their local time. All right, let's meet in this meeting as well.
Word. See you soon.
Yep. So yeah, see you soon or